So recently at Change Labs, we had a very interesting experience. And if you think about Change Labs as a company, it's fast growing. We're in 9 cities these days. We're still in the business of execution, taking ideas and making them happen in the market. So making it happen, and the messages of that book apply as much to me as an entrepreneur as the people I wrote that book for, which is you, hopefully. And I'll tell you what happened. We basically are incubating a new business model just on the side of our core business. It's not a huge kind of piece of work. It's kind of a couple of $100,000 we're throwing at this thing, a bit of a risk we're taking. But it's big enough that it's got our attention. It's big enough that we really want to get it right. And we made some very ambitious predictions, let me just say that, and projections when we looked at how many things we might sell and how many customers would be interested. Anyway, the first 3 months have yielded, in hindsight, phenomenal results, but nothing like the ones we had projected. In other words, if you look back, our projections and our performance don't match. Now, it was very interesting to watch myself and the team, and our response to that was we automatically assumed there was something wrong with our execution. Whereas when you really dug deeper and you actually considered the market and how long it takes to incubate a brand new idea, a brand new business model for a company that's always done things one way, then our results were actually really good and our execution was actually phenomenal. The issue was our projections were wrong. We were overly ambitious. We made incorrect assumptions about how quick the market would adopt this model. They'd been doing things a certain way, expecting things for a certain amount of time, and now we were bringing a whole different dynamic to play. So I went in search of some extra insight about how you incubate innovation outside of the core business model. And I found a phenomenal book. Now I'm holding my iPad in my hand because I don't read a lot of hard copy books these days. A lot of my book reviews are going to be, I was reading on my iPad the other day. But anyway, I downloaded a book on my iPad called The Other Side of Innovation. And the authors, I'm going to read the name here because it's really hard to pronounce, is Vijay Govindarajan. Vijay, I really hope I've got the pronunciation right for that. Chris Trimble and Todd Schuster. The book is The Other Side of Innovation. And it is a phenomenal piece of work that has dealt with, I think, at a corporate level, what making it happen deals with at an entrepreneurial level. And it's that once you get past the idea, it's not about the idea, it's about execution. It's about effectively making it happen. And they track, study, research, report on, give evidence for how large organizations can get beyond the idea generation stage and actually execute in the market. And I thought it was really valuable to share with you a couple of the key insights that were in that book, because one of them relates directly to my experience at Change Labs as a CEO and some of the things we've done. And the first one is this. If you have a new idea you want to take to market, you must create a dedicated team. That is a team whose job it is to work out how to create a sustainable, profitable model around that new innovation, how to embed it into the business, how to sell it to new customers. You need a dedicated team. They isolate many examples of companies who just give it to one dude and go, right, your job is to make that work, and they let that person go out like the Lone Ranger with the sword in his hand to fight against the bureaucracy and red tape of the business. And they say, no, you absolutely must create a team approach. And that you ultimately end up with what they call, and I might have got this language a little off, but essentially the scale and execution machine that is the big corporation, and the engine for innovation or the incubator for innovation on the side. And you end up effectively with 2 entities. But you need a dedicated team here that sits separate to the major organization. But then the second insight I wanted to share with you, I thought was truly profound. Simple, but profound, as so often those things are, right? On the other side of complexity, let's put it that way. And it's that the biggest mistake we make when setting up dedicated teams is that we make it sound like it's the sexiest, coolest part of the business to work in. And by default, it alienates or diminishes the value of the execution machine, the business, the bigger, broader, traditional core. And what happens is you start to have a passive aggression, or sometimes an outward aggression, from the traditional business to the new incubation dedicated team. This team will die and wither on the vine effectively if they don't have the support of the bigger core business, because it funds them effectively. It shares its overhead, it shares its insight, it shares its scale, its distribution, its ability to go to market. You need a very collaborative relationship between these two parts. So it's essential as the leader, as the CEO, that you don't set up the incubator, you don't set up the dedicated innovation team as the sexy, cool thing. That it is on the same level as, not better than, not worse than, the traditional core business. Because otherwise you're not going to create the shared resources that are absolutely essential to making that work. Now, even though we don't want to make them sound like the rock stars, you also don't want to take the same incentives and take the same processes for reviewing performance that basically occupy the big traditional core business and then applying that to the smaller dedicated incubation innovation team, because the criteria for good performance over here is different. There is a core assumption that underpins scaled big businesses, and it's that our performance last quarter is a pretty good prediction of our performance next quarter, and we should basically take our target there and add a couple to it, and that can be our predictor of what good execution looks like. It is just not the case when driving innovation. The metric should not be built entirely around numbers and return on investment and how quickly you're penetrating the market. The metric, based on this book, The Other Side of Innovation, which I found just really interesting, is that the metric is how quickly are they learning. Because like me and our business Change Labs, we made bad projections up front. The question was not was our execution bad, but how quickly could we reset projections that were more realistic so we didn't kill the morale, kill the motivation, or strangle the funding required to keep our new model that we're incubating on the side going. In other words, don't take the incentives, the review process, the criteria, the planning cycle from the big business and apply it over here. Yeah, use its overhead, use its funding, use its assets, use its insight. But don't take these other things because they will strangle the innovation business. So to you three guys that wrote this book, unbelievable piece of work, The Other Side of Innovation, long overdue, too much work about ideas out there. We need to go beyond that, and we need to start getting into execution.